That was Jeff. I don't rap that hard. The meeting will now come to order of the VIA Board of Trustees, and the time is 5:10, and the date is October 22nd. Our chair will be along very shortly, but we thought we'd go ahead and get started. Could I have Mr. Ponick listen to the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Arndt, do you have a report?
I just have two brief things. Larry Johnson could not be here. I'm just making sure that he could not be here, but at the recent White Cane event, he awarded via a plaque, and he asked that I share with you the words he used that day. So this is from Larry Johnson. Public transportation is tremendously important to persons who are blind or visually impaired. Without it, well, many of us would just stay home. But with public transportation, people who are blind can go to work, go to school, go to the doctor, go shopping at the mall. It is our key to social and economic independence. Now, because VIA's fixed route bus system is not everywhere easily usable and accessible, many of us rely on and are grateful for VIA paratransit system. It's not perfect, but it's gotten better, and many of its recent improvements, an automated notification system, door-to-door service at both origin and destination for those passengers who need it, disability sensitive training for van operators, a same-day request taxi subsidy program, have been the result of successful dialogue between organizations like the Alamo Council of the Blind and top GM management. There's still more that can be done, so our conversations with VIA will continue, but it is fitting and appropriate on this occasion that we should publicly acknowledge the progress that has been made. So it is my pleasure to present on behalf of the Alamo Council of the Blind, the National Federation of the Blind San Antonio chapter, the San Antonio Lighthouse for the Blind, Blinded Veterans of America South Texas chapter, Guide Dogs of Texas, and DAR's Division for Blind Services, this special plaque that reads, "To VIA Metropolitan Transit, in recognition of its positive efforts to expand opportunities for independent travel for blind and visually impaired individuals in San Antonio and Bexar County on July 15, 2013. And I commend the VIA Trans staff for all their efforts to do so. And please go ahead and applaud.
Can we single out the staff, our leadership team?
Sylvia's here. Sylvia, who else is here with your team? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, David.
David?
There, and, well, yes, stand up, please.
Yes.
We have operators, they're the ones that deliver the service. Yeah, you are the team.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all that you do every day. Secondly, the National Arts Program in VIA co-sponsored our third annual employee/family exhibit and awards program for art. Art in a variety of media, including painting, photography, pottery, and mixed media are on exhibit now at the Westside Multimodal Transit Center through mid-November. Last Saturday evening, we announced the results of an independent judging panel, and prizes were awarded in youth, teen, and adult categories. The best in show is at the back of the room there. It was prepared by Christine Vigna, who works in Brian's staff, and it's called Theater Eater. It's a great repurposing piece of art of a theater, and so it's in the back of the room. And I encourage everyone to go visit at the Westside Multimodal Transit Center to see the other pieces that are on exhibit, including a participation piece of my own. I warned Christine that she shouldn't beat her boss once, let alone twice, but it fell on deaf ears. And Mr. Martin, do you have a comment?
Yes. Could I introduce my son?
Absolutely.
I'd like to introduce my son, Mark Martin, who is visiting us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And if he'd stand, there he is. And my wife Sandy's here too.
She lives here, all right?
And hopefully
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item number 4, citizens to be heard.
Madam Chairwoman, we have 4 citizens to be heard tonight. The first is Henrietta Henry.
My name is Henrietta Henry. I'm a supervisory lead teacher at VIA's Child Development Center. I am here with some of my co-workers as the others are still working. I would like to address some concerns we have as to the closing of the Child Development Center. Although we hope we remain open either at our current location or at a new site, these are some of our worries. When will the parents of our children be notified of the center's closing? We understand options are being considered for them, but informing them sooner than later is better. I understand, as per Deanne Mendoza, that a final decision will be made in December. However, all indications lean toward closure by May 31st. Ms. Mendoza stated our positions were secure until the end of May, whether we had 40 children or 5. We would like for this to be confirmed. At the end of May, what will happen to the staff at the CDC? We were informed that lateral positions would be available if we qualified as part of staff assimilation within the VIA departments. As most positions start off as part-time, we're left with questions as to what happens to our existing benefits. If unqualified for available positions, we were assured that training programs would be offered, and if so, when would these sessions be available? And if our existing staff is unable to qualify for positions or training, would unemployment be available without conflict? After some research, the qualifying for unemployment is determined by VIA and Texas Workforce. Will severance packages be offered? And if so, would years of services be a determining factor? I ask this as we have committed ourselves to the VIA Child Development Center through our continued education as required by state licensing, some of us obtaining degrees in child development, and our years of service at VIA CDC, which range from 4 years to 23 years. We have educated, positively directed, and developed the individual skills of VIA children as we prepared them for preschool and kindergarten. As such, we hope that the VIA Metropolitan Transit System and this board do not forget the contributions we have made for the children and the part we have played in the growth of VIA. Thank you.
Lori Tertucci.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. First of all, my name is Laurie Sertucci, and I think that VIA's rude to start the clock before I sat down, giving me less time to talk. And I just want to bring up a concern. I was wondering why they closed that window at 5 o'clock. Many of us are VIA trans riders, and we get to the VIA board meeting at 5 or a little bit later. If it's because of budget constraints, can't they just open later and close later? Luckily, I was able to buy my VIA Trans tickets. The person was nice enough to sell it to me. But you got to realize that people do come to these meetings, and even though they come late, they get out of work at 5. And it was real good when the window closed at 6. And that's the only thing I want to ask is why they close it at 5. And if it's because of budgeting, I recommend that we probably open later and close at 6 again. Thank you.
Damon Mason.
Hi, VIA trustees, many salutations. My name is Dana Mason, and I am not pleased. I'm not pleased with the epilogue, this written epilogue of CAF 348,600. 94. It says here that, well, there may be advantages serving Randolph Park right with Route 14. You're saying about like making the trip longer, less direct for passengers, use the Parambile segment of the route, much more expensive to operate. You need a more there needs to be a more substantive explanation. I'm trying, my intention here is not to hobble the train service in any way, but to make it better. To say, wait a minute, did you guys I'm to get you to think outside the box. I really do think that Route 14 should have Randolph Park and Ride as an intermediate destination. I think for a fact that the leap of faith, right, like that the anti-clockwise Uber has to make at the base of that westbound 410, at the base of that ramp from southbound 35 is a dangerous driving maneuver that should be abolished right away. So, you'll have to do much better than this. I insist on it.
Harris, aye.
I want to say good afternoon to everybody. They had in the paper that Mr. Munoz was ready to retire. I hope you do retire. And then they were saying about the minutes, a lot of times they start before we even started speaking. I've been noticing that, but I don't say nothing because I just keep talking till I get my 3 minutes. Y'all need to give us 5 minutes. We're having a problem on the new VIA Trans vans. They don't have a strap wrapped around the people if they want a strap. And that should have been done some time ago. I was at y'all's last meeting and I left my bag. So I called Wednesday and then they said come by and pick it up. The guy that was at the front desk asked me for my ID card. And then he typed something in the computer. I have never seen that happen in my life. I worked at J.C. Penney's and package pickup. We look at the card to verify the person and then they name after they write it down. So why are y'all putting our IDs in the computer? I need to find out from y'all. Y'all didn't never write a letter to explain why. Well, whatever y'all reason is not a good reason. The board meeting that y'all had today, y'all did not have roll call. Okay, y'all have to call the roll so we know when the minutes are done who's here and who's not here. That's automatic. We'll give you another example. University Hospital moved their meeting from 6:30 this evening to 2 o'clock. Opens records meeting. Y'all have to post it so we'll know what time the meetings are. And they didn't do it. CPS, same thing. They didn't post none at City Hall. They didn't post none at Bell County. And I told them if y'all keep on violating the rules for the minutes, that y'all gonna be in a lot of trouble. The new fare boxes, y'all need to push that back to March because it's gonna be a lot of people confused and y'all don't have enough information. Mid-Crown route, I think it's 606. A lot of y'all bus stop do not have a CPS lights. The lights on McCullough, they're all on the east side of the street, and they need to have the lights on both sides where there are bus stops. 9501, one of y'all women drivers, she's tops. I rode the bus with her on the 68 route into town, and she's very courteous and mannerable and everything. And then also, y'all need to put the drivers sign, where they put the sign at in the front of the bus instead of on the left side. Y'all still need to pay y'all part-time drivers the years that y'all didn't pay them, your full-time drivers. VIA have a fundraising for the scholarship fund, and I would like for the VIA board members and union to help them with the scholarship fund. This is something that VIA do every year, and one of the guys was telling me about it. He didn't tell me I had to say anything, but that's just me. They need a lot of money to help the kids that don't have, can't go to college and stuff like that. So I want y'all to do that. To do that in the future, and we'll talk about VIA now having roll call. I think y'all really need to have it over, to have it period, before the Attorney General come down here and find y'all. Have a good day.
There are no more citizens to be heard.
Thank you. The time is now 5:29, and the VIA Metropolitan Transit Board of Trustees will officially go into a closed executive session. The items that we will discuss during this executive session are as follows. Item number 10, entitled Modern Streetcar Vehicle Storage and Maintenance Facility Update, which is an executive session item pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, entitled Consultation with Attorney, and item 11A, entitled Legal Briefing, Review of Personnel-Related Complaints, which is an executive session item pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, entitled Consultation with Attorney, and Section 551.074, entitled Personnel Matters. All persons who are authorized to attend the executive session, please proceed to the small conference room. It is now 6:42, and we are officially coming out of a closed executive session regarding agenda items number 10 and 11A. No deliberations of public policy or vote taking occurred during the executive session. That brings us to item number 5, consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Grisenio and a second by Mr. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 6, Lone Star Rail District update. Mr. Buchanan.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. With me tonight is Joe Black with the Lone Star Rail District. As many of you know, VIA Metropolitan Transit is a partner in the Lone Star Rail project, which is the commuter rail between San Antonio and Austin. And Joe is here this evening to give us an update on where they stand with the progress of their project. They have been making substantial progress on the project and are looking to San Antonio to make some decisions in the near future. So we wanted to come and update you about that tonight.
All right. Oops. How'd that get there? Oops. Let me just go to the... There we go. All right, much better. Well, thank you very much, board members. I've been here a few times over the past few years, but as Mr. Buchanan mentioned, this is a particularly exciting time for us because we've reached a few watershed moments in the project. One of them being we are getting ready in the first quarter of 2014 to kick off our combined EIS on the freight bypass and the L-Star Passenger Rail Project. The Federal Highway Administration will be our lead agency on that. We have selected a contractor. We're in the contracting process right now, so we would hope to be in scoping by the first quarter of 2014. So that's a pretty exciting moment. The other thing is that we've been working on our local funding strategy over the last 2 to 3 years with our local funding partners, cities and counties that will benefit, and also the community college districts, the local taxing jurisdictions. And I'm happy to report that both the Austin and San Marcos City Councils passed unanimous resolutions directing the city staffs to draw up the interlocal funding agreements and ordinances necessary to establish local funding for the Lone Star Rail service by the end of 2013. So that's, again, a very important step for us and a big watershed moment. So I thought I'd report that right up front. Can I use this? Can't use that? Oh, there we go. So just by way of background, a lot of you know a lot about the project, so I won't stay on this for a long time. I do want to be respectful of your time. You know, we like to talk about what L-Star does, what it could possibly do for Central and South Texas. Originally, we had 16 stations planned at our full service level. We're now looking at a possibility of doing a split station concept where certain stations are skip stopped. If they don't have enough ridership to justify a station, we combine 2 adjacent stations that have low ridership, and we split operations between those. At our full service level, we plan to operate 32 round trips a day. That's 64 trips a day. It's about 118 miles from San Antonio north to Georgetown. That is the passenger portion. Now, just as important, and in fact necessary for the passenger project, is the Urban Freight Rail Bypass project. And back in the early days of the Lone Star Rail project, when it was known as the Austin-San Antonio Intermunicipal Commuter Rail District, that's quite a mouthful, the initial approach to the project was that we would operate passenger trains intermixed with Union Pacific freight trains on the Union Pacific line. As Union Pacific's business has grown over the years, they've become very successful due to NAFTA, due to the economic boom in Texas. So the section of railroad between Austin and San Antonio is now the most dense piece of freight railroad in Texas. There's a lot of trains out there, and if you've been stuck in traffic in San Marcos as one of them is passing, you know what I'm talking about. There's a heck of a lot of trains operating out there. So the realization was reached in the early 2000s that just wasn't going to be possible anymore. We were going to have to look at a way of relocating those freight trains. So TxDOT commissioned a study in the 2005-2006 timeframe called the Central Texas Railway Location Study. And out of that study came some concepts for bypassing the urban cores between San Antonio and Austin. That project was inherited by Lone Star Rail District because it benefits, directly benefits our project. In fact, it makes our project possible. But as we studied this, the Urban Freight Rail Bypass Project, we realized that it has its own reasons and rationales to do it. It is a mobility improvement all on its own. As I mentioned, towns like San Marcos routinely get cut in half, dozens of times a day by these long 1 mile to 2 mile long freight trains. It's a mobility issue for them because traffic backs up at the grade crossings. It's a public safety issue. Cities like San Marcos actually have to provide additional emergency services coverage because, God forbid, a fire truck or an ambulance would get stuck on one side of the railroad or another. So it creates some real issues up and down the corridor. Also, the Union Pacific line as it stands today is very close to capacity. There's not a heck of a lot more that they can do to attract freight from trucks to rail with the current facility. The freight rail bypass line, which depicted on the screen there, is about 80 miles. Let me use the mouse here. This red portion here indicates the study area, the basic study area for the bypass line, which is about 80 miles of new railroad, roughly between just west of Seguin and just southwest of Taylor. The green segment here is existing Union Pacific Railroad that would be improved as part of the project. So that project would take upwards of 30 plus trains off the existing line to make it possible to operate passenger service. The other big change would be the maximum freight train speed would be increased from 20 miles per hour, which is the current average in the corridor, to 79 miles per hour. That would make the freight service, rail freight service, a much more attractive option for shippers. And so we fully expect this to result in some diversion of truck freight to rail freight, which is another mobility improvement for I-35 and also an air quality improvement. And probably most importantly, it takes dozens of trains per day out of the urban cores between San Antonio and Austin. It would remove those trains that currently go through the downtown and would move them to a new alignment south of downtown. A much safer alignment, a grade separated alignment, so there wouldn't be as much exposure for highway rail grade crossing accidents, and a faster line. Again, while it was first conceived as a way to operate passenger trains, it does have its own benefits and its own reasons for doing it, and we think it's a very important part of our project. So I wanted to give you an update about what's going on the north end of the corridor as well. And some of you may have heard about an effort on the north called Project Connect. It's a partnership that was created between Capital Metro, the City of Austin, and Lone Star Rail District, with the MPO, with Campo acting as kind of an organizing entity for that. We did it at first because there was a realization by all the partners, the current partners, that we were pursuing our projects in silos and we weren't really talking much to each other. So there's a few dangers there. First of all, if you don't speak as a region to the federal government and funding agencies, it doesn't go over very well in Washington when you come hat in hand one at a time. It's much better if you have a regional system plan that you can go forward with, where the financials are worked out, the system is worked out, and the organization is worked out ahead of time. Secondly, we want to make this as easy to use for people as possible. So we want to do things like fare integration, schedule integration, common customer service, common web presence, all the things that will make this system very attractive to use for people, because at the end of the day, the passenger doesn't care care who owns the train that rolls into the station or who maintains the tracks. They want an easy-to-use system where they can pay a single fare for their entire trip, and they can get information on their trip, no matter who owns the system. So we've partnered with the other transportation agencies in the Austin area to create this partnership. So it was formed really to answer three basic questions. First of all, how do we operate, or what does the future high-capacity transit system in Central Texas look like? Secondly, how would we organize as a region to develop and operate that system? And finally, and probably most importantly, how do we pay for the system over the long term, both the capital construction funding and the operations and maintenance funding that will be necessary? This is where we are in Project Connect right now. On the system question, we have a system plan. We're into the corridor study process, and some projects are in environmental or getting ready to go into environmental, like the L-Star project. On the funding side, we're working on those local funding interlocal agreements with our local funding partners. As I mentioned, big news, Austin and San Antonio. Austin and San Marcos have directed the staffs to draw the paperwork up. Kyle is not far behind. Hayes County and Travis County are also not far behind. We expect all of them to be on board before the end of 2013. And finally, on the organization side, we've signed, the three partners have signed a joint agency management ILA, which kind of commits us to plan together and advance the system together as one organization. And we're now into the regional system owner funding ILAs portion of that, which is going around to those local jurisdictions again and making the arrangements to how are we going to pay for the ongoing operations and maintenance of the system. So this is the vision map that was produced as part of Project Connect, and they did include San Antonio because Lone Star Rail is a part of Project Connect. So it's a pretty extensive, ambitious plan, which includes Austin's version of streetcar, which they call Urban Rail. It's a downtown circulator and will one day serve Bergstrom Airport. It includes extensions to Capital Metro's commuter rail system, and it also includes two branches of the Lone Star system, one to Taylor and one to Georgetown. And of course in San Antonio, we connect at the West Side Multimodal Transit Center to both the Primo service and one day to the streetcar service. And that's indicated on the map right down here. It's a little tiny. This was produced by Capital Metro, so so they emphasize their own service area, obviously. What this does, though, is it creates a single system that'll serve 6 counties and 16 cities in central and south central Texas. It's a game changer type of thing. One of the analogies that I really like is a telephone system. If you have a telephone system that has 2 telephones, it's not very useful. When you begin to connect more telephones and get a network going, the value and the worth of that, the attractiveness of that goes up exponentially. This will link all of the cities in the corridor with a high-capacity, congestion-proof mode of transportation. So some of the funding sources that we looked at under the Project Connect plan include these, and I won't go into exhaustive detail, but the ones that are circled are the ones that are in the Project Connect financial plan. Some of those are under local control. Some of them require us to make partnerships, for example, with CTRMA for express lane revenue, to use some of those toll express lane revenues for transit. And some of them are under federal and state authorizations, federal and state grants, TIFIA and RIF loans and that type of thing. And finally, under voter authorization, the City of Austin is looking to go forward with a bond program in November to pay for their urban rail system. So that's where that voter authorization piece comes from. So how much does it cost? Well, hold your breath. It's expensive. We're building a new freight railroad to the east of I-35. But what I always tell people is, we can get this thing going for about $1.8 billion. Comparatively, the cost of a 10-mile highway improvement going on right now in the Dallas Metroplex, 10 miles, is going to cost $5 billion. This will give us 120 miles, basically, of congestion-proof, high-capacity transit between the two of the fastest-growing metropolitan regions in the United States. We think it's a worthy investment. The O&M costs. We did an O&M cost model, and the way that we decided to address how to fund it and how to equitably bring our partners in to fairly fund the operations and maintenance, we finally settled on a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 strategy. And that is basically that the Central Texas region, which is Austin and Travis County, and those taxing jurisdictions will pay 1/3. San Antonio, Bexar County region and the taxing jurisdictions here will pay 1/3. Finally, the smaller cities and their counties and taxing jurisdictions will pay that final third. And what that works out to be at our initial service level is about in the range of $30 million per year. It's important to note, though, that these are planning targets. These are service plan targets that are based on a very preliminary ridership analysis, and they could change over time. And in fact, with our local funding partners, we've made one very important commitment to them. We've made a lot of commitments to them, but one of the most important is that we have pledged to live within our means. So if we don't get 30 million, if we get 25 million, we will come up with a service plan, a $25 million service plan, and we will grow the service organically based on demand from there. Again, this is a lot of words. I'm not going to read all of them for you, but the cost benefit that we offer, the cost benefit proposition that we offer is for local participation, which is all of these sources that we're looking at over on the left. The benefits that L-STAR could possibly provide, it's congestion proof, it's a single system approach, value growth created by the presence of the rail stations. It's an alternative to sprawl. It helps to concentrate development and densify development around rail stations. We are excellent partners with Union Pacific. We have an MOU signed with them in 2010. We're moving towards a letter of intent, hopefully next year. They have been excellent partners with us. They believe in the project, and they've said as much in letters to Travis County Judge Biscoe, where they basically said, we believe in the project, we believe it'll be successful. Number 6, very important, removes through freight trains from the urban cores. Again, a huge mobility improvement. Brings a lot of capital investment, a lot of jobs, and for private property owners, it increases the value of private property around those stations. So there are some investment issues that we identified as part of Project Connect, and one of them is that a regional service needs a regional approach to funding, so that any communities that benefit, that have high-capacity transit stations, they need to pay. They need to pay for the ongoing operations and maintenance of that system. Each community has to contribute a fair share or equal effort. We acknowledge that cities like Buda and Kyle are not going to have the same financial capacity as, say, Austin or San Antonio, but there needs to be an equal effort. So if Austin is creating property tax TIFs and contributing some Capital Metro sales tax money and parking revenues, then we expect the other partners to have a similar level of effort. And finally, that we have, again, to go back to my statement about living within our means, we have made it clear that we will live with the growth that's produced by the stations, we'll live with the property tax revenue, the increment, that is generated in that half-mile circle around stations, and we will basically, we call it a pay-as-you-grow approach. Of course, early local participation will ease the participants' transition, so there's not a budget shock. So if these districts are created sooner, it's not going to be a $2 million bill next year. We'll grow into the system. And finally, the cost sharing between all the regional partners, it eases the burden on any single local participant. Again, there won't be a budget shock to these cities and taxing jurisdictions. I won't go into a lot of this, but we are working on a policy for those communities that either opt out or had the opportunity to join the district and did not. And there's a lot of implications to that which we're working through, and we're going to update our board of directors hopefully early next year on where we are on that. So the next steps are to establish our local funding mechanisms. As I mentioned, Travis and Hayes County, we're hoping to finish by 2013, and the others, Williamson, Kamal, and Bexar County, by the end of 2014. We are working hard to identify and secure all the federal, state, and private funding that we'll need to construct the line. We have commitment from our contractor and from Federal Highway Administration to do an expedited EIS, which means we think very seriously that we can complete that in 36 months as long as everyone cooperates. So we're working on a cooperative agreement right now with our partners. And finally, the board has directed us to use a P3 project orientation. So there's going to be a lot of private sector involvement in this, which has been kind of the history of the project. And that's it. I would be happy to answer any questions if we have time for that.
Questions, comments, Mr. Presenia?
First of all, I just want to say that I appreciate y'all coming and updating us, and I would defer to fellow board members that might have questions.
Sure.
Mr. Black, I had a question for you
Yes, sir.
regarding the makeup of the board.
Yes, sir. It's a 20-member board, which makes it, and Allison, my compadre here, will attest to this because she has headaches over it, makes it hard for us to get a quorum sometimes. We have to wait, 15, 20 minutes until the people arrive. But it's a very representative board. It includes elected officials from all of the cities between Georgetown and San Antonio. It includes representatives of Travis, Hayes, and Bexar County. It includes representatives from VIA and Capital Metro, the 2 MPOs, the rural transit agencies, and then there are 2 at-large members that are appointed by the Texas Transportation Commission. So we think it's a very representative board.
And from the city of San Antonio, as far as the elected official?
It is Councilmember Lopez. No? Oh, I'm sorry, it's Carlton Souls.
Yeah, Carlton Souls.
As a VO.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
On
My fault.
On the accelerated EIS, I just got lost. Is it for the current UP line or for the new current line?
It's for both. And yeah, I mean, we would absolutely love to get this thing done in 3 years. We were skeptical as staff that we would be able to do that, but when we went to FHWA and talked to them about it, the regional planning guy from FHWA told us something very surprising, which is that he got a call from DC about our project and got told that the project is an administrator's priority. So they are to expedite to the greatest extent that they can do it. So I still don't know exactly what administrator's priority means, but it sounds really good to me.
I had a question. You mentioned the
Yes, sir.
seen your presentation a couple of times before. You seem to mention the interlocal agreements to the north in multiple places, and did not seem to omit them. Discussion of them here. Would you address that? Are there issues that have made us last to get on board, so no pun intended?
Yes, there have been a few issues, and one of them, frankly, is ours. It's bandwidth. I mean, it's a big job to negotiate these ILAs, and we have really 2 people that are working on it, myself and one other person, in addition to all of my other duties. So it's a bandwidth issue for us, but in particular for San Antonio, there was some hesitation by city staff to really engage in a substantive way because they had other priorities. You know, the mayor's education initiative took precedence, and some other things took precedence. So we had a hard time getting some traction down here. I'm very, very happy to report and want to very, very publicly thank once again VIA, especially Brian Buchanan and Christina Castagna from the planning staff, who are now hosting the financial meetings that are attended by VIA, the county, and the city, and they've been, so far, I think, very successful. So thank you very much for that.
And I kind of wanted to dovetail on what Dr. Gambetta said, because as I look forward, it obviously looks like Williamson County and Travis County are exceedingly ahead of us. And did you say also Hayes County is now, well, you were speaking a little bit about Hayes County.
It's actually Travis and Hayes are the ones that are furthest ahead. Williamson County, we've just started to talk to those jurisdictions, and we've just started to talk to Bexar County. We haven't even touched Kamal yet. So the way that we look at it is this: if we get Travis and Hayes County on board, that's a railroad. We have local funding support for a commuter railroad there. We can put the others off because of our bandwidth issues, and again, because sometimes the city staffs have other priorities unless they are directly directed by council. So we can put the others off to 2014, but I have every confidence that we'll be able to complete those in a year. These have taken several years to get to this point, but we now have a framework agreement in place that was negotiated by all of the parties, basically. It's been a very transparent process. So if San Marcos has a provision that they want included, we tell Austin about it. So if they want it in their contract, it gets put in. So we have a framework now that we can take to these jurisdictions. So we don't have to start from the word go much anymore. We already have kind of the deal points worked out, and there's a lot of protections in there for the taxing jurisdictions, things like rakebacks of money if we don't get the project done in a certain amount of time, suspension of payments if we don't get the project done in another part of time. So I think it'll be really attractive when we go to these other funding partners. Again, it's a bandwidth issue for us. It's, I wish we could be talking to everybody at once, but we're doing our best.
Has there generally been consensus or not on the fair share equal effort on the investment funding issues?
Yeah, there's been that was one of the values that came out of the Project Connect planning process, the financial planning process. Again, in recognition that the smaller cities don't have the financial capability that the bigger cities have, but they still have to make some type of equal effort. So we've defined that as you need to implement the same or similar mechanisms that the other cities are doing. But we've also included in the deal points, so the contracts we're working out, sort of a favored nations clause that basically says if we negotiate a deal with San Marcos and then a year later we negotiate with Schertz and they think that, hey, Schertz is getting a better deal, they get to dispute that, and there's a procedure to go through for that. But it's been, it's been...
Equal effort does not result in equal output for obligation.
That's correct. A city like Buda, for example, I mean, their total property tax revenue for 1 year is about $1.5 million, but they're faced with these growth issues. They're growing quickly, so they're thinking about police officers, firefighters, and so they're not going to be able to contribute as much as the other jurisdictions, but there's a way for them to participate by doing those the same things that everybody else is doing, basically.
The other thing is they won't have the same number of stations, for example, that Austin and San Antonio.
That's right.
So they'll have more service, if you will.
Right. Actually, Buda will, at least at the initial service level, will probably have less service in total because it'll be one of those skip-stop stations. There's just not enough ridership there to justify stopping every train right now, but someday there will be.
And we will update, now that San Antonio has a locally preferred alternative, there would be an updated map as well.
Yeah, it was updated, and you could kind of see it. It's so small; it's an orange blob. The official Project Connect map, though, will be updated. I already brought it up at the last Project Connect meeting and said we would appreciate it, and VIA would appreciate it very much if you included the streetcar project on there. And they said, yeah, no problem. So, Kyle Cahey is actually the urban rail lead in Austin, and Kyle, of course, has been instrumental in the streetcar project here from HNTV, so he's kind of the bridge there. He's working all that, working with all that.
Thank you. Forgive my ignorance on this one. Regarding as UP looks to acquire new land, resistance to, as they move from, I guess, going from Seguin up to Taylor, how does that look? Are they seeing resistance?
Well, it's actually, we would be acquiring the land, constructing the line, and then turning ownership over to them. And the way the deal works at a very high level, it's a title swap. We build them a new railroad, they turn over the keys to their current railroad, is the way that it works. So it's us that'll have to be dealing with that through the EIS process. We did put into place, we led a contract for what we called stakeholder and local government engagement services, where we kind of did an educational campaign. We went out to those eastern counties, to elected officials, Farm Bureau, any stakeholder, and just said, we're not advocating for the project. We're just simply here to tell you what it is, what's going to happen, so that when you start to get concerned calls from constituents, you'll know what it is. So I think we've kind of prepared for that. Who knows how it's going to go? I hope it goes smoothly.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Item number 7, Congressman.
Good evening, and as many of you have known, for some time we've had a process in place regarding the contract for our federal lobbyists. Some of you, well, I'm looking at one individual that assisted us. We had a selection committee, of course, that followed the procurement rules, which are extensive here at VIA. And then we had 2 individuals from the board that assisted us as part of an advisory panel. We had about 8 proposals. We pared that down to about 3, and we conducted interviews with the particular law firms. Extensive, as a matter of fact, probably an hour and a half with each, certain questions and such. They came prepared with some preliminary questions, but then we elaborated on those. And after careful deliberation and consideration, we believe that one of those firms could represent VIA's interests not just adequately, but in excellent fashion as they have in the past, taking into consideration the team that they have in place, the expertise that they have demonstrated for some time. And so I know that I was not present for the Intergovernmental Relations Committee meeting the other day. I was in Dallas at a transportation forum, but the report was made to the committee of the selection of this particular law firm. And I believe there were questions at that time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have as to how we may have arrived and what were those factors.
Do I have a motion?
What is staff's recommendation? Congressman, what's staff's recommendation?
Staff recommendation would be Holland and Knight.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a second discussion?
Well, as serving on the procurement committee, I just want to say that the 3 of the firms, 2 were absolutely outstanding. I thought the vetting process was done quite well. And Holland and I, to put it bluntly, seemed to want it more. And based upon their long time involvement with VIA, and then particularly their knowledge as we're going forward for federal funding, and all of the formulas that's going to be needed to be done. They seem to be the most qualified, and again, I cannot stress, it seems that they really, while they are currently our federal lobbyists, they seem to actually value our business and want it to continue.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Item number 8.
Tracy Manning is our manager of planning and service planning and scheduling, and he's going to review a proposal for a demonstration project period for unlimited ride electronic transfers, which would be associated with the implementation of the new fare boxes.
Yes, I was sitting in for Keith, who's out of town right now, but the fare box, the new fare boxes are going to be implemented as of November 25th. And so in the first phase, one of the things we're going to be doing is implementing electronic transfers in the actual day pass. So they'll be coming out of the fare box. That's the only thing we're going to start with. So the reason we wanted to bring this on board, the electronic transfer will be now good unlimited rides for 2.5 hours. Right now, these are the transfers that our operators take, and they tear off on the bus, and they're sold for 15 cents each. And so it's a slight fare change because it'll be 15 cents for that electronic transfer, which is a magnetic stripe card that it will be sent out. It'll be good for 2.5 hours to ride anywhere on the system. And so that's I guess the main reason we want to have this pilot project is just so we can put the fare in. And so this does benefit the customer in that, now they don't have to use multiple transfers. It's less money. They pay a single time. And then the operator involvement, they're not handling these coming in and out from the deal. And then, of course, the unlimited rides should help our ridership. So the training for the operators to use the new fare boxes and what they're going to be doing with the day passes and electronic transfers has been ongoing. They seem to be catching on. They like the new technology. And we're also starting our promotion to our customer base also. It's on our webpage where there's a video that's on there. We're also out at our different transit centers with the electronic fare box so they can get hands-on, look and see what it's like, where to put the money, and just to get all the easy stuff past them where they know where to put the money and how to get their day pass out, their electronic transfer.
Move for approval and implementation.
You're asking for an approval to implement the pilot project,
Correct, for a 6-month period.
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Miller and a second by Dr. Gambetta. So this is the first step in the implementation of our electronic fare revenue system.
This is the first step, and then the 31-day pass, which will be taking care of the flash pass that we have now, should be early part of the year, January of the year, we start that. And then later in the year is when the smart card comes in.
Okay, great. Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 9, Clay, Mr. Smith.
The purpose this evening is the Metropolitan Planning Organization provided a program call for the Surface Transportation Program Metro Mobility funds. This evening, because of the new MPO structure in which today, or actually beginning Monday, the new seats will be provided at the MPO, in which VIA will have a board of trustee at the MPO, and the ATD will have a board of trustee. And so in context to this presentation, we want to consider recommendations from both VIA board and the Advanced Transportation District. The STPMM is the Surface Transportation Program Metro Mobility, and it's the most flexible of the federal programs that are provided by the Federal Highway Administration. And in June 1st of this year, the MPO provided a agency call for projects, and the call is for about $55 million. At this time, that's all they believe that they're going to have available for project funding, and so that's what we're working around. Project submittals are due December 2nd of this year. Some of the projects that we considered as a staff and looking throughout the area.
$55 million over one fiscal year.
It covers really from 2014 to 2018. It's probably the latter part of those fiscal years. Some of those years they've already selected projects, but it's basically a 2-year window of money that they have. Some of the projects that we considered, historic bridges, Broadway, downtown transit center, streetcar, 281 park and ride, regional CNG, IH-10 transit priority managed lanes, traffic signal priority, passenger stops. These are just kind of the group of needs that we considered in forming our recommendation. At the MPO, they have, there's different options in which we can, or the MPO, I say we, I don't serve on the MPO anymore after doing it for 20 years, I keep saying we, but the MPO can consider projects in different manners. They can consider many small projects, and I know Brian has talked about it as spreading the peanut butter and just spreading it out throughout the community of small projects, needed projects, but just small. The MPO could also select one large regionally significant project and put all their funds in one project. Or they could do a combination of the two where you could have smaller needed projects that were used or selected, but you could also have a large project that may be used to leverage other funds and fund a larger project that is in the community. And so the staff recommends that we look at, and what we're submitting this time for recommendation to the board is the leverage or the combination where you look at a large significant project that may be leveraged with some STPMM funds as kind of seed money, and also the balance of the funds could then be used throughout the community for other needed projects, but kind of a balanced approach. And so the recommendation from staff is three parts. The Advanced Transportation District recommends that we would have a leverage plan to put $15 million of STPM money as leverage money or seed money to build transit priority managed lanes on Interstate 10 West from Loop 1604 to Leon Springs and Leon Springs to FM 3351, which is Ralph Fair Road. Also, the Advanced Transportation, the service plan would be to construct phase 2 of the US 281 park and ride facility. This is the phase 2, which we already have purchased the right-of-way for phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 is under design right now and funded, but phase 2 is not. And we recommend $15 million on that project. And then the VIA service plan would be to construct needed shelters and passenger center stops, and that would be $10 million. And so we have, for the VIA board, we have the VIA service plan, and there's a resolution in your packet for the recommendation for the VIA service plan for the shelters, passenger centers, and stops. Answer any questions if you might have.
Do I have a motion for approval? Second. I have a motion by Mr. Lee. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Dr. Gambetta. When you say the ATD, Are you talking about a situation where you as the staff of ATD are making this proposal and you are also at the same time sharing that information with the county, and the county is also going to approve these recommendations for funding?
Yes, sir. I've already made contact with the Texas Department of Transportation. This particular corridor right now on Interstate 10 is not under the management of the Alamo RMA, but is under direct management of the Texas Department of Transportation. And I've talked to TxDOT and the district engineer Mario Jorge, and they support this project and will be submitting a similar request as well. Mr. Gonzalez and I are preparing appointments to go meet with the county and the Alamo RMA to discuss this very submission to
This
get
is
their.
not under the RMA's jurisdiction at the moment.
Correct. At the moment, the Alamo RMA has the management development on the others, but they do have the first right of refusal. So we will
On
be
this
talking.
on this piece as well.
Correct. Any of the corridors legislatively they do.
And who is other, or what is other?
It could be the Alamo RMA in terms of. Let me see, what am I looking at? Let me go back.
No, it was on that slide. Go back to see the funding.
Oh, other, yes, other could be, it could be the Alamo RMA, it could be other local dollars that come to the table.
And have the conversations progressed with regard to, on these transit priority lanes, what exactly our role is?
I think that'll be some discussion as we move forward. On 281, the TxDOT on the Alamo RMA are developing the corridor. Right now, the financial plan that I understand it has about a 40-year payout before it actually begins to see a profit. It covers basically the debt and the operation and maintenance. What looking at here is that if this project could be fully funded, then one could begin to see above and beyond operation and maintenance a revenue stream from day one when it's opened up.
I've lost you on the 281 project now.
I'm sorry.
Because I thought that project was fully funded up to a certain line.
It is fully funded.
So now I don't understand.
I'm sorry, there's $170 million out of a $500 million program that would expand US 281, including the northern connectors at 1604 and 281 to the county line. There's a balance of about.
So the expansion of you're talking about now that the decision is being made to expand the line from where it was fully funded all the way out to the county line.
To the county line and including the transit priority.
Can you bring back a briefing next month on the status of that project? And
yes, sir.
If there are discussions that are taking place, I assume those discussions are taking place vis-a-vis the agreements that were allowed the funding to move forward in the first place.
Yes, sir, I can. And if you'd like, I've had conversations with Mario Jorge at the district, and I could bring you.
Very nice for the new district engineer to be here and introduce himself.
Okay.
I know him, but
I know
to the board.
And he said he's looking forward to coming. I told him I would work with the board on that, but I'll do that for next month.
That would be great.
Clay, could you give me clarification? The transit priority managed lanes are total lanes, and the only way they can be built would have to be brand new right away. Is that correct?
The transit priority lanes, they're like an HOV lane, and but you do toll the excess capacity, and it's only for new capacity. It has nothing to do with the existing, and it would be on Interstate 10, as we're talking about. There would not be any new right-of-way needed. It would be between the existing express lanes that are there.
It would have to be new lanes.
They're all new lanes. That's correct.
Okay, and the other question to you is this. On the construction phase, on the 281 Park and Ride was not sexy enough for us to win a Tiger grant.
Correct.
What has changed that we should make us feel like this Park and Ride is more sexy and we'll be able to get a STP grant?
Well, I think the fact that it's local, I mean, it would be a local decision with the community to make that decision versus coming from many states away. So I think it is with the implementation of the transit priority lanes by TxDOT, this completes that link for the park and ride, and so I think it is a good discussion to have so that we can implement this at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The RMA will now have representation on the MPO also.
Yes, sir. The RMA will be one of the new members at the policy board as well.
Do you know if they are planning to submit as well projects?
I do not know, but that's another, the Alamo RMA and Mr. John Clamp, Mr. Gonzalez and I are already scheduling that meeting to go meet with them and have the same discussion. We don't want any surprises. We think this is a worthy project. It's worthy of the transportation entities, the Alamo RMA, TxDOT, the Advanced Transportation District to take the lead to see this implementation. I think everything is there with the new MPO board, with those entities sitting at the board. I think it's has a lot of advantages.
I want to speak very strongly in favor of this recommendation. The idea that VIA, which for years has struggled with how to move people from the suburban community into the urban core and do it in a way in which people feel like by getting on a bus, their travel is going to be expedited. And now that you've begun to figure out that these transit priority lanes will give you that priority,
yes,
I think it's incredibly important. And if you have the opportunity to leverage dollars and to work very closely with the Texas Department of Transportation in the way that other communities have, specifically Houston and Dallas, on these new generation of HOV lanes, I think that is, for the midterm, incredibly important. So I think this is a very, very important vote to go forward to the MPO at this point. And I think that in combination with what the board passed out earlier, which is these new planning studies that move forward some of the same kind of thinking with regard to the planning of high capacity corridors, is where VIA needs to be focusing its attention in the near future. So congratulations. Anyone else?
I just say amen, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
We already did legal briefings, so do I have a motion for adjournment of the VIA board? We stand adjourned. The time is now 7:29, and I'll call this meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Advanced Transportation District to order. Any announcements, Mr. Arndt?
No, sir.
Item number 3, consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Lee and a second
Second.
by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Smith. This is basically a reiteration of the same.
It's a reiteration. The recommendation is before you that the Advanced Transportation District provide a leverage plan of $15 million recommendation to the MPO to leverage the seed money to construct transit priority lanes on Interstate 10 from 1604 to FM 3351, and also the ATD service plan to construct phase 2 of the US 281 park and ride facility to connect to the transit priority managed lanes on US 281 for $15 million.
Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Dr. Gambetta. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Do I have a motion for adjournment? I have a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Second, we stand adjourned.